Okay, so welcome to the first of several intern presentations. We're in our final week of our 8-week program in Ecuador, and I'm gonna let Aura kick it off with her presentation.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Aura. I'm one of the PACH interns for this summer, and I will be going over what I've been working on for the last 2 weeks. So my project has been on indigenous nutrition. I did the implementation portion of the project, and I created the Nutri-Libro, which I will be expanding on a little bit more in the next coming slides. So a little bit about me to start off. As I said, my name is Gallardo Muñoz. I am from Los Angeles, California. I am a rising sophomore at Princeton University. In the spring, I hope to declare chemistry as my major, and some prospective minors that I have are neuroscience, Latin American studies, or classics with a focus on medicine, science, and the body. And fun fact, this picture here is from when we went to Baños as a PACH intern group, and we visited at Bailón del Diablo, and it was so fun. But yeah. So before I get into my project work and everything, I wanted to give a little background as to why I chose PACH for my internship this summer. There were many reasons to pick PACH, but it can basically be summarized in three main aspects. So number one, it was the community interaction that I would get with PACH. As I spoke with my advisor for international internship programs at Princeton, her name's Mariela. She really pushed me to apply to PACH because she knew that I really wanted to work with communities face to face. And I got to do that with PACH. I not only got to see patients as patients, but I got to understand their background and where they came from, and everything that has to do with them, not just the medical aspect, but everything else. So I really liked that. And apart from that, also, Spanish speaking was a very important part of me choosing my internship for this summer. I am a native Spanish speaker, so I know how to speak Spanish in a very casual tone. I speak it with my family and all of that, but I really haven't had much experience with Spanish in a professional setting. So I wanted to have that experience this summer. And PACH gave me just that because I worked with predominantly Spanish-speaking communities, which was very fun, very interesting, getting to expand my vocabulary. And yeah, and finally, I also wanted a change of scenery in the aspect that I have worked in medical settings in the US, but I wanted to see how medical settings in other countries work and how the medical system is integrated into communities and all of that. And PACH really gave me all these experiences where I got to work in caravanas, I got to work in the communities outside of caravanas, I got to work with hospital staff and just really learn how the medical system works here in Ecuador. Yeah, PACH gave me all of that and gave me such a wonderful summer, which I'm very thankful for. Now on to my project focus. As I said before, I worked on the indigenous nutrition project. I have worked off of past intern work, especially from Hilal. She had created a implementation plan for the indigenous nutrition. It was for the whole community, whereas I chose to focus myself a little bit more on infant nutrition. So I concentrated on bridging the knowledge gap for families to have a more balanced nutrition and understanding of how to obtain that, as well as how to prevent chronic childhood malnutrition, which is a very big problem in Ecuador, it being the second highest in all Latin America. So I wanted to combat that a little bit, and I did that through the creation of the Nutri-Libro, which we can see here as the outcome. The Nutri-Libro is an interactive workbook that will hopefully be distributed out to communities, and it will give the families and communities information about nutrition and hygiene and all these things. So I created the first draft of the Nutri-Libro, and our slogan is Raíces saludables, futuros fuertes, which translates to healthy roots makes strong futures. So yeah. So the creation of the Nutri-Libro was very interesting because we got a lot of community input from it. for it to create it. We used a lot of information from a women's educators group from Loja that we visited on one of our caravanas with Zach. On this caravana, we went to Loja, and as a intern group with Zach, we gave a presentation on infant nutrition. So during this presentation, we had a portion where we worked with, we split off the 60 women that attended the workshop into 6 different groups, and then all the interns took some of the groups, and we answered a couple of questions, or as a group we answered a couple of questions, and us as interns, we took notes and were the facilitators for the group discussion. And from these answers, from these responses from the groups, I got all the responses and put them into a Google Sheet where I then coded them, or I found the similarities between all the group responses. And from there, I used this information to really focus and hone in on what the communities needed, what the information that was most necessary to include into the NutriLibro, and some very important aspects about the NutriLibro, or things that communities should know. So without this group of women from Loja, which can be seen here on the slide, this NutriLibro really couldn't have been possible. So I'm very thankful for them. And we will continue to work closely with them in the furthering of the NutriLibro and the distribution of it to the communities. So yeah. So here were our findings that we got from these responses, and that helped shape the NutriLibro. Just to preface, the images you see here, I know they're very small and very hard to read, but they're pictures, they're actual pages from the NutriLibro, and I just wanted you guys as an audience to really have a understanding of how the findings were integrated into the NutriLibro. So I will be explaining them, and it's because they are hard to read. So yeah. So the first thing we found was what was the issue? What was the biggest issue with families not having the nutritional knowledge needed? So this was the issue that through all 6 groups was noted. So to help with that, I created the NutriLibro, and with Zach and the help of other coworkers, we helped develop this NutriLibro. And on this page, since it is an interactive book, I included some aspects where the families and communities could connect with the book. So like here, as we can see, this is a small quiz that I introduced just so families could have a small benchmark to understand how much knowledge they already have about nutrition. And then at the end, there's another quiz, like a post NutriLibro quiz. And of course, all of the questions are based on information that is included within the NutriLibro. And the answers are also included. And if the question seems a little dense with information, I made sure to explain it. And hopefully the families will get to interact and learn a little bit more about nutrition through these quizzes and through the book as a whole. Next, there is the aspect that was very important that was brought up again by all 6 groups. It was huertos, or gardens. These gardens were seen as a very crucial tool to providing enough nutrition to families and communities. There were 2 main reasons why they were seen as very important by the Loja Educators Group. Number 1, it was because it gives children and families as a whole an interactive experience to see how their food grows, to understand how harvesting and planting all their produce and all of that, how that works. And then second, it was to help combat getting foods that have a lot of pesticides. So all the groups brought up the point that communities usually get their produce from markets or from local farmers, and these local farmers are known to use a lot of pesticides and things like that to get rid of pests from their produce. So they brought up that some families don't know how to properly clean their produce, or that these pesticides are so ingrained into the produce that it's very hard to get rid of them, and they can cause more harm to the families if not taken care of properly. So they see the huertos as a alternative to obtaining only produce from the market. Of course, it can't be a full remedy to this issue, but it is it can be an alternative to just getting produce from the market. So what I included in my Nutrilibro about this was a little section explaining the importance of the huertos and how they can be helpful. And I also included how to make your own huerto, make your own garden, where it can be a traditional garden, where it can be accessible to communities with more land, more space, because you need a lot of space to plant in the ground and all of that. Or in more urban settings or in places where there isn't as much space, I also included a section of how to create container gardens, which are just as they sound. You just plant all your produce or whatever you want to grow in containers you have around the house. So it also helps with recycling and the reuse of plastics and things like that. So yeah. Next, I also included a section on hygiene. So my group from the educators group in Loja, they explained how a lot of families don't know the exact hygienic practices, or they don't understand some of the, or like why we need to drink clean water and things like that. So I included a section as to how to identify clean water, why clean water is such an important part of a healthy lifestyle and all of that. And it's in the second page that says Hogar Limpio, Niños Nutridos. So in that portion, I explain what are some of the what can happen if water that isn't clean is consumed, and how that can cause more issues and more health problems. And then on the upper page, I included a small section of how to properly wash your hands. And I also made it a little more easy to understand by including that that the duration of washing your hands should be the same time as saying happy birthday twice in Spanish. So yeah, I think this section was vastly important because it's to be hygienic. It's have a healthy lifestyle or a balanced nutritional lifestyle. It's very important to have hygiene before that, because it gets rid of the possibility of introducing bacteria or other issues from the external world. So it's just that small section. So prevention before infection. So yeah. And then finally, this was one of the biggest parts of the whole Nutrilibro and the whole Loja discussion. It was not only how to get produce that is nutritious and how to have a balanced meal, but how to get children to want to eat these nutritious and balanced meals. So the women's group was very helpful in this aspect, since they've worked with families, they've worked with children for so long. They know the things that are most helpful to getting children to want to eat. So on this page specifically, we can see that I included the portion where they made a point to say that children first eat with their eyes. So they need something that is visually stimulating, visually appealing to them. So they recommended that when giving meals to children, it's important to make them very colorful and have them in fun shapes, because this makes the children interested in the food and makes them want to see how it tastes and all of that. So eyes eat first. That's what they told us a lot. And apart from that, they also made it a point to state that eating should be made a positive experience for children. So it's very important to make sure that children want to eat, that not to force them to eat healthy, because then they develop a negative connection with food, which is very bad in the future, because then they won't want to eat these nutritious foods because they associate it with something negative. So by creating a positive environment, a positive interaction with food, children are more prone to wanting to eat these nutritious meals and see how it benefits them. And apart from that, they also explain how children should be included in the in the creation of these meals, of these plates. Just by allowing them to see how the food is created and all of that, it gives them something, it stimulates them and makes them want to learn more, want to continue learning more about how their food is made and just have an overall good relationship with their food. So yeah. So that was what I figured out with my project thus far. I created the first draft of the Libro. So what comes next? What comes after I leave, after this summer, after I'm done with the program? Well, I hope that we can get to the creation of the final draft of the Libro and the charla outline, which will be used to promote the Libro. So this will hopefully be done in a span of a couple of months, where the Libro goes through multiple portions of revisions and community outreach to ensure that the Libro is a helpful resource and that communities will want to use it as something that will benefit their learning about nutrition. So hopefully PACH at FIBUSPAM can help with this. Yeah, and they can help through the monitoring of community engagement. As I said, we will send out the Libro to communities and hopefully get their feedback, where we can then modify it to ensure that this book is helpful and all of that. And my hope is that we can create more Libros that can help different age groups. As I said, my Libro is solely based on infant nutrition. So I really hope that we can create Libros that are for other age groups and that can be used in more communities and all of that. So yeah. As I said, PACH and FIBUSPAM will definitely help with all the supervision and community outreach that is yet to come to ensure that the Libro progresses through all of its portions of revision and community engagement and all of that. So PACH and FIBUSPAM can have hopefully different representatives that can do this and just overall ensure that the Libro is getting out to communities, and we are taking in feedback and modifying the Libro for whatever feedback we get from them. Yeah. So now I wanted to go over some of the advantages and an advantage and drawback to my Libro. So an advantage is that we definitely got information that is directly from Ecuadorian communities. So this ensures that this information is relevant and that it's information that is helpful to Ecuadorian communities specifically, because that is the communities that it will be distributed out to. So this is a very big advantage to the Libro because it's from feedback from communities that it was created. But at the same time, this is also a small drawback because the information that the Libro was mainly based on is from the input that we got from the educators group in Loja. So this can be a small drawback because it's very much connected to what the Lojano said. And Loja is a very urban city, which can be very different from more rural areas or areas like the Amazon, where we also hope to reach. So a way to combat this drawback is by getting feedback from communities. So we're hoping, as I said, to send it out to communities and get their feedback on what is helpful, what isn't helpful. So we hope to do this with each individual community, that being the Chimborazo province, the Amazon regions like Aurora. So getting feedback and an understanding of what they need in the Libro so that it can be helpful to them, and then modifying it for each specific region so we can reach out to more people. Now comes what I leave behind. What are some open ends that I wasn't able to get to with my time in Ecuador or with PACH? We still don't know how effective the Libro is. We weren't able to distribute it to communities and get feedback. So I hope that in the future this can continue to be this can be started and we can get feedback on anything that we need to fix with the Libro, anything that can be made better. Apart from that, I also don't know the production and distribution costs to this, but I'm sure that FIBUSPAM and PACH will continue to move through it and we will be able to figure that out. And finally, we had begun a small collaboration with World Vision, but since my time here was limited, I wasn't able to continue that connection. So hopefully we can find more external collaborations where we can get the Libro to more communities, and we can get more feedback from different individuals and all of that. So, and then finally, here are my main takeaways of my time in PACH. So from the Ecuadorian communities, I learned so much. I learned about how important tradition and the connection to nature is, which is something I will take with me forever. It was so interesting to see how all the traditional practices and their connections to nature blend into the medical system, and how interesting that is. So I hope to continue exploring that more in the future. And in the professional aspect, I've learned so much from my colleagues at FIBUSPAM and all the doctors and people that came on caravans and all of that. Mainly, I learned about kindness and understanding, especially I worked closely with Dr. Isabel. She was a very inspiring doctor. She really taught me how it's important to just listen, first to people and to the communities, so that we can then give proper care, because a lot of these communities have preconceived notions about the medical field. So really listening to them and changing their perspective on that is very important, and just being kind and ensuring that their needs are met and not letting them go away with just a talk from the doctor, but ensuring that they feel like they're being taken care of. Next, I also learned about resourcefulness. In caravanas especially, we didn't have all the resources available to us like in a normal hospital setting. So I really learned that it's very important to make do with what you have, and still ensure that patients get all the care they need, and just make sure that with what we have, we can do the best, we can provide the best care. And finally, always be curious, always ask questions, never be afraid to ask why something is going on, or how, or even if it seems like common knowledge, but you don't know it, it's fine to be curious, and just to overall have a good connection with the doctors by asking these questions, and overall anybody. So thank you to the PACH for giving me such a wonderful summer, and for all the experiences that I was able to have, and for allowing me to create this NutriLibro and go through my project. Yeah.